Hey guys, it's Wahima, but just call me Wah. So let's get into this 90-day fiance, girl. I got my reading glasses on because I'm about to read everybody up in here for filth. This has been the shadiest episode, and I've loved every single second of it. The lip gloss that is on my lips right now is Black Radiance Black Beauty. It's a lip gloss that I got in CVS along with the other two Black Radiance lip colors that I've tried on for you already. And so, you know, it's sticky. It's a little runny. I would say it's more so of a topper. I'm not a fan of the brush. The brush is that like bristles, you know what I'm saying? When it should be like a doe's foot. But anyways, let's move on to the 90-day fiance. So first, we have got Abby and Sean. This episode is called Red Flags because, girl, so many red flags. I mean, just so many red flags. Things are happening bad on the field. There's a whistle blowing. There's a referee coming out. Sean indicates that he really, really, really wants to propose to Abby at the end of this trip, but it's not looking like it's going to happen because he's so worried about Chris. And as we find out, he should be. Sean, you should be. So Sean uses his sixth sense and he realizes something is amiss. It turns out that Abby loves Chris, girl. Like, Abby is in the car with Chris. They're on their way to meet Sean. They're giggling. She's giggling. Like, she says something to him and he just goes, okay. And he like rubs her shoulder. And she was just like rubbing my shoulder. What's that all about? You know, like before it, you would have rubbed my face. And he's like, well, I'm on my best behavior. So she is craving the kind of physical contact that she had with him before she was with her boo Sean. Something is wrong with that, Abby. If you don't recognize that you have a boyfriend and the way that your friend touches you, he changes it in order to honor your relationship, and you don't like it, girl. Yeah, and in the cab ride, girl, my worst nightmare. Again, they start talking about scabies. Abby makes some allusion to like being itchy, and then he's like, oh, you're still itching? And she's like, yeah, you're not? And he's like, no, it's gone. And she's like, and he's like, yeah, you're gonna have to get treatment, and so is Sean, because if you guys, even if you get rid of it, you guys are just gonna be passing it back and forth. And she's just like, my question is when they both got scabies, or when he gave her scabies, or she got scabies from wherever it is that he was, why didn't they have a conversation as to what it was? Like, does he not talk to her when he's in the States? Like, isn't that not something you would discuss? I'm going to tell you right now, if I went to meet my boo and my boo had a rash, and then I went home and I had a rash, I would be calling him like, hey, we have a rash. Like, how are we going to fix this? I'm not sure why they are just now having the scabies conversation when Abby has had scabies for a month. Can somebody please explain to me their relationship? I don't quite get it. In fact, I'm starting to think that Chris is daddy, because Sean's not daddy. Sean is just somebody she could be with. Chris could take care of her. Chris could send her money once a month. Another thing about the scabies, just to go back to it, how is Chris sitting in the car with Abby and not fearful that he's going to re-get scabies? Like, is his method of getting rid of the scabies like just so nonchalant and like whatever, like he just doesn't care? He's not me, obviously. He's not me. Because he's okay with a little bit of itching and he'll just go and do the process and get it done. I guess when I think of getting scabies, I assume my entire body is going to be like affected. Maybe he only had it in one area and then he was able to get to it before it like went all over the body, because he sure didn't have it for the last month, girl. Like, Abby is all over her body. So while they're in the cab, there's a lot of innuendo, there's a lot of looking, there's a lot of giggling, there's a lot of like, between the two of them. And at some point the car stops and the light that shows that the cameras are recording goes off, and Abby's like, oh, the cameras are off, and Chris is like, oh, the cameras are off. And I thought they were gonna like make out, like it would have made my year if they made out, but they didn't. Abby just like surreptitiously tried to hold his hand. I don't know, it wasn't clear if they actually did grab hands or they were playing with fingers, but my thing is still, Chris, you don't have scabies anymore, stop touching her. All right, so next we move on to Karine and Paul. Okay, so Karine and Paul are rollerblading. You know, she's wearing the same salmon pink shorts that she's been wearing since like the entire time they've been in this new town. They're walking around and Karine's a little bit like, hey, this dude already asked my father for my hand in marriage, and it's been, 2 weeks and he's leaving soon. I wonder I wonder when he's gonna propose. You know, I'm just waiting for that ring. And she's not saying it in a like sort of way, but in a way that's like he already asked for her hand. It would be really embarrassing if she had to go back home and he decided not to marry her. Like, he declared it in front of her entire family. They go off to be somewhere together and she has to come back home because he decided to call off the wedding. Like, it's got to be very devastating. And I don't think Paul, and I didn't even realize how big a deal it was, but it's got to be very devastating to her if he doesn't propose. And I, at this point, only so that she isn't like laughed at by her family, like, or like looked down on, I want Paul to propose to her. They're rollerblading, they're having a good time. They go to like this little like park or whatever. They're sitting in this like, looks like a zoo, but it just might be like a part of the park. And they sit down and she asks him about it. And, you know, Paul's a little frustrated that they're still using the translator app. And I'm just like, okay, then learn Portuguese, idiot. Paul doesn't know if he wants to propose anymore because he's worried about having to tell her about his sordid history. And he says that whenever he tells any girl that he's dating about this history, it always ends up with them breaking up. You know, he doesn't know how Carini is going to respond. So we'll see. Okay, next we have Courtney and Antonio. Now, this is where it gets stupid for me. I actually watched a preview of Courtney's first episode and I realized that she did say that when she went to Spain that she wasn't going to be sleeping with Antonio. And I also guess I don't remember like the kind of conversation that her and Antonio used to have. Apparently Antonio used to tell her like that he loved her and he wanted to be with her and he wanted to marry her, like quintessential playboy-ish. I think he probably thought that she was on the same wavelength of like them just playing games together, right? So now she gets here and she's a little bit more than I think he bargained to deal with. I could definitely see there being a miscommunication with what each thought this relationship or each thought this trip was going to be. So they're sitting outside of this cute little restaurant having lunch and eating tapas, and it looks like it's amazing. And she brings up the picture of him, the like erotica pose, and then asks him if he's a porn star. And it's just so contrived and weird. Like, I know the producers probably told her to ask him during this time, but he seems a little like he doesn't know it's coming, one, and because he tries to pretend like that's not him in that erotic picture of him with the handcuff. Then two, he backpedals and is like, well, it is me, but it's not porn. And so like, what does it matter? And she says like, how do you think I feel knowing that you kept this from me? Like, anyone out there can see this. My friends found this. Like, this is very embarrassing to know that the guy I'm dating does like erotica or like porn. And he's just like, first of all, it's not porn. And secondly, like, I'm a model and sometimes I take sexy pictures and I'm not going to have this conversation. This is a stupid conversation to be having. Like, you're not going to ask me about my job and my professional life before you. I don't owe you anything. And I agree with Antonio. Like, if you don't trust me, you know, you can go. Like, he basically tells her that. I don't want to spend my time talking stupid questions. In Spain, it's not that serious. I understand how Catalan is different. Courtney to understand it's not for me. He's just so over it. And at this time, I am too. Because I get where Courtney is coming from, but again, like I said, I think they both had two different ideas of what her coming to Spain meant. I think he thought he was going to have like a fun little tryst with a blonde American girl who in her pictures looks way more like a sexy vixen than the person who's sitting in front of him. Let's be real. Let's keep it real. All of her pictures, she looks like she's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but her pictures exude a different type of personality than the person you would see in front of her. She is holding true to who she said she was, but I still am finding it a little like, okay, you're right. We were wrong, but like, now go home, okay? Next, after this, we move on to Darcy and Jessi. She's making up her hotel bed for some odd reason, and then she goes into the lobby and sits down and like was reminiscing about last night, and she's looking sad, but very fresh face. I mean, a little, if not a little puffy eye, you know, she's been crying. Jessi walks up in his, I mean, just beautiful olive green House of 11 bomber jacket. Hey, he's bringing her some makeup and some stuff she left behind. And a little bit more of what happened last night was kind of revealed. I guess she did get upset and didn't want him to touch her. Maybe while she was packing, he tried to stop her and he couldn't. And then she ran through the bushes, not sure. But like, Basically, this conversation is him showing up, her telling him that she was overwhelmed and there's a lot of things that have been unsaid, and she's in a new space and she's feeling very alone and claustrophobic, and she just needed to get out and have her own space. And so Jessi is saying, but yeah, you felt that way because you were intoxicated. And she's like, no, it didn't have anything to do with the drinks. The drinks were something that I did for myself because I needed a time out. I'm an adult, you know? And she also mentions that Jessi always has this attitude of like, yeah, I've been there, done that. Like, he knows all these things. And she's like, no, I've been there and done that. I know all these things. Like, if I need to have a little drink to calm my nerves, I'm gonna have a little drinky drink, you know? And so he's trying to blame her outburst on the alcohol. And then he's like, oh, well, it's okay if you express yourself, but you can never again express yourself with alcohol. And she's just like, what? And he's like, will you promise me to never have another drink again? And she's just like, it's not because of the drink. I was feeling this way. And yes, I kept things bottled up, but like I needed to like I'm an adult. And he's just like, but you know how that hurts me. And I've seen a lot of things, bad things happen to people who drink alcohol. I'm going to ask you this question and you're going to promise me that first of all, he says, I'm going to ask you a question, and then proceeds to not ask a question, proceeds to demand that she never have another drink again. And then he tries to like say like how much he helped her while she was intoxicated. And then he makes a point that I think he might be making, but I don't know if he's making. He's basically saying like, if you get drunk in Amsterdam, as your Amsterdam host, I'm responsible for you. And that's what it sounded like. And that's exactly what I hope he meant. Because the truth is like, yes, if that is his angle, like, yo, you don't know the rules here in Amsterdam. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. So promise me that you're not going to drink, or at least if you do drink, have one drink, you know, keep yourself to a minimum, because I'm responsible for your trip here. I'm responsible for you. And I don't want to see anything happen to you. And then it could go that way, but it all could be like, you know, I don't want to have to pick your sloppy ass up off the ground, so stop drinking. I feel like that's his controlling side. Because you can't tell her that he doesn't want her to have a drink anymore, because she's clearly not an alcoholic. If this is the first time you've seen her drunk since you've seen her, like, she just needed a drink, like, and maybe a couple drinks. Sometimes people just need to get drunk, girl. Like, he's like, yeah, can you please stop drinking? Her response is, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if she was just like, yeah. Darcy is not going to stop drinking. Like, that is, his request is ridiculous, especially because this is not like the 5th time that she's gotten crazy drunk and acted a fool. If he thought that she had an issue, but even demanding that she has not another drink again is not the way to get somebody who truly has a problem from stopping to drink. Like, that's his way of solving it is wrong, and it's very, very 24 of him. So then next we go back to Abby and Sean, and this is where Chris and Sean finally meet. And girl, it is the most awkward situation, is because Sean talks such a big game. Like, he wanted to know all the details. He wanted to have a man-to-man conversation with Chris, and then proceeds not to have a man-to-man conversation with Chris. Like, sits there and lets Chris intimidate him. Abby introduces them. Abby says hi to Sean and introduces Chris. And then they just sit down, and Chris is like, so Abby tells me you guys are dating and she seems really happy and I'm happy for you guys. Sean is just like, Chris is like, so, hey, how's Haiti? This is your first time in Haiti, right? It's certainly very different. And Sean is like, yeah, all places are different than other places. The fuck, Sean? The voiceover of Sean's confessional is like, my first impression of Chris is that he's arrogant. How is he arrogant? He just asks you, hey, so this is your first time in Haiti. He's trying to make conversation like a normal person, and you're over here being weird as fuck. So then Sean decides to ask Chris how they met, and Chris tells a different story than Abby told Sean. Chris says that they met in a cafe in some town, I don't know which, in the Dominican Republic or Haiti. And Sean is like, well, that's not what you told me. And it's like, what does it matter? But okay, I can get it. It's a lie. And so he's holding on to something that she's lied about. And she's like, but I told you about Chris before you and I were even dating. So like, even if I did lie about how I met him then, I'm just lying to somebody I wasn't in a relationship with. Like, you don't need to know how I met my ex-boyfriend. Like, it's really none of your business. And then he's like, well, let me see your WhatsApp conversation with Chris. Like, so WhatsApp is an app, for you guys who don't know. WhatsApp is an app that a lot of people outside of the US use to communicate with each other. And it's also free. So you could text message through WhatsApp. And so he's like, let me see your WhatsApp conversation with Chris, and she's just like, no, it's my phone. You either trust me or you don't trust me. Like, I'm not doing this. I agree with Abby for not letting him. I'm back and forth. I'm back and forth and all throughout this relationship, you guys. Like, I agree with Abby on some points, and then I agree with Sean on some points. Either way it goes, these two shouldn't be together. But because I'm playing both sides of their game, like, I get it. Do not give this man your phone. First of all, it's none of his business. If he doesn't trust you, then he needs to just take his mistrust and go. Like, done. You don't need to force somebody to show you information that you already kind of know is there. And even if that information isn't really there, you're somebody who doesn't trust that person. And so showing them their phone is not going to satiate that desire to constantly see if your person is cheating on you or not. I feel like if you don't trust someone, you shouldn't be with them, period. Sean then tells Chris that he thinks that he's poisonous for her, which is a really crazy assertion of this. Poisonous? No, he's not poisonous. The reason why he's not threatened is because he doesn't want to be with Abby full time. He wants her to be his Island of Hispaniola thing, okay? His Dominican Republic thing. He's willing to pay a certain amount of money to have her there ready to go. She wants more. Chris is like, yo, son, this is not the game. You're not gonna get more. This is what you're going to get. So I think, like my friend Chris, is that she's now set up so that she and Sean can be together to make Chris jealous. But it's actually not working on Chris because Chris knows what he wants and what he doesn't want. So when this conversation goes awry between Sean and Chris, he just gets up and leaves because he's like, I don't need to be in the middle of your drama. Abby, you have my number. Good luck, babe. You know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't need to do any of this because he doesn't care enough about keeping Abby to do anything about it. Like, he's like, I like you and we have a great time together, but if this is what you want to choose, then choose that. If you need me to be your side boo, I will stay daddy. And so she's like, no, I don't want to let go of daddy. She's not going to let go of daddy. She wants to keep both of them. As would I if I were her. And if it came down to a choice, I would get rid of Sean because daddy will always be there. And even if he isn't always there, daddy will give me money, okay? Sean's not giving her any money. He just bought her a bunch of panties and told her to sell the panties, okay? All right, so then that ends that sequence, and then we jump back to Courtney and Antonio. And Antonio is staring at the waitress's butt, and she then proceeds to call him out on other stuff. Like, Courtney is 26 years old, and she's consistently just calling him out on things. So what did you say about this? Like, well, what do you think about that? And who's texting you now? And champagne, blah, blah, blah. And low-key, it also sounded like Antonio told the waitress that he found her hot. I don't know. I'm not understanding his lispy Spanish. He sounded like he told her she was hot when he was ordering the wine. But, you know, you rewind and tell me what you think. Then he tries to, like, backpedal and says, forgive me. And then he tries to say, like, oh, his sister is text messaging him. And she's like, oh, you know, when am I going to meet your family? And he's like, whoa, slow your horses, as he should be. And she's like, well, you met my family. And he's just like, that was your choice. Like, I don't bring every girl I meet home to my parents. Like, bringing people home to your parents is a big deal. And she's just like, but you told me you loved me. You told me you wanted to marry me and have sex with me. And he's like, yeah, okay, yeah. You forgive me. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did say that. And, but you know, girl, he didn't mean it. You're just another girl on the internet that he was flirting with. That's it. He tries to, like, kiss her a lot. Like, he's like, give me a kiss. It got so uncomfortable because she was clearly, like, not interested in getting a kiss from him. And he just did not want to let go. And I think it was because she was asking whether or not they were going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. Like, I think she thinks a little bit that they're boyfriend and girlfriend. And he's just like, what? I don't understand your English. Like, he's very selective with it, what he understands. And I'm like, all right, Antonio, use that to your advantage. I hope she gets her own place. Like, I don't want her to go back to his apartment acting weird. Like, just get your own place, girl, and go home. Like, it doesn't matter. Go back to Abby and Sean again. And for some reason, Chris hasn't left. He's just kind of, like, sitting in the pathway. And they're having a conversation. And Chris is just like, look, like, I'm no threat to you. Like, it's whatever. And Sean is like, no, you are, that you're in her life. Like, I can tell. I know something is up. And Chris is just like, whatever, dude. I'm out of here. Abby comes back and he chases her down the street. And she's like, I don't want to talk to you. And he's like, choose between me or Chris. And she's like, no. And she walks away again. So, like, she doesn't want to be with Sean anymore. Sean even starts crying to the camera, God bless him, that he loves her. It makes me sad. That makes me sad. He really does love her. And he really does want to give her this ring anyway. And he's, like, thinking of whether or not he can just deal with this. And I'm just like, Sean, cut your losses. Stay at your Airbnb. Enjoy your time. Go back home. Like, this was a miss. Listen, you either choose me, the man who's willing to give up everything for you, or you choose him, a man who, his name is Chris. And that solidifies it right there. Like, she doesn't even want Sean to refer to him as the man. Like, she loves daddy. So next we have Paul and Carini. Paul finally sits her down and tells her that he has been to jail multiple times for different reasons, and all of it's due to relationship stuff. The first charge was arson. He was accused of burning down his house or something, or burning some of his property, and then he had a restraining order out on him from some girl, and then another time from another girl. So like, he's saying it's a lengthy criminal record, and I'm just like, ugh. And he's like, I'm a bad person. Like, I've done really bad things. Like, oh my God, you need help. Like, it seems like Paul has some kind of like crazy neuroses, and when really bad things happen to him, like he freaks out and does stuff, and like, oof. So Karine is like confused because she's like, this is not true, is it? Like, she looks at the producers and she's like, this is trash, right? This is like garbage. This is not true. This is not real. This is not real, right? And after he like runs off, because he's like, I can't look at you, and he gets upset and he like runs off. But like, from when we're watching, it doesn't look like anything's wrong with him. It just looks like he's like being weird and running off. He like runs off into like the woods or something. So she goes after him because she's like, it's dangerous in there. So she chases him into the woods and is like, Paul, no, stop it. Paul, where are you? Like, looking for him. And she's running after him. She's in chanclas, like flip-flops, jumping over gates and shit, and like trying to kind of follow him. So finally she gets to him, and he's at like the edge of like a really small brook or creek or something, and it's like dirty. And he's like, I'm gonna get all kinds of things walking in here. He's like talking to himself to walk through the water, but it's so gross looking that he doesn't want to. So he keeps saying like, oh my God, I'm gonna get somebody. There's probably many diseases in there. Like, I don't know what's in there. And da-da-da-da. Like, he's mumbling to himself. And then she finally catches up with him. And she's like, what are you doing? And he's just like, no, you go away. You go back. You go back. And she's like, no, what is happening? I'm not going back. You're not going to want to run across this creek. Stop and talk to me. And he's just like, no, being so dramatic. And she's just like, finally, she's like, look, I'm not going to let you do this. So she like physically holds him and like pushes him back. And because he's a little sucker, he just lets her do it. Like, I mean, he's not that much heavier or taller than her, but like, tries to get his phone out. And he's like, stop it. Like, she's reaching for his pockets to get out his phone because I don't know where her phone is. And like, to text and have the conversation, he's like, no, I don't want to talk. No, I don't want to talk. And she's like, give me the phone. So she takes the phone and she like puts in the information, turns to him. She's like, what are you doing? This is stupid. Stop this. I'm not doing this. Like, and he's just like, I'm a very bad person, Karine. You go away. You go away. I'm a bad person. I don't want you here. Like, da-da-da-da. And she's just like, what? She's like, look, this is the last thing. This is the final straw. We're leaving here. Come out of here. And he's like, no. And she's just like, okay, fine. Bye. Good luck. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be with Paul. She walks away. She's like annoyed, and she's walking and she's like crying, and she's just like, this is so stupid. Like, I don't even know what's going on. Like, he's walking in the bushes. And then this dude runs up to her with a machete in his hand and is like, da, 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 and she's just like, da, and she like hands him her phone. And he takes her phone and he like runs off into like the woods as well. And then like she's like, Paul! And she's like crying and on the ground, and like the crew don't know what to do, and they're just like we gotta get out of here. So the crew is like running around trying to figure out what's going on. Looks like the policia or the policia like shows up and like goes into the woods, and there's gunshots. There's gunshots after the guys who stole the phone. Like, what is happening? Camera crew, producers are like, we got to get the fuck out of here. And I'm like, these locals are very bold. She's with an entire crew. I guess they must have peeped that nobody was armed, and they just ran up to her with a machete and took her phone. And I don't know if it was her phone or Paul's phone. They can't find Paul at all. Like, it's just a lot of chaos. She's on the ground crying, and she's super embarrassed, and I'm sure she's super lonely. And like, even one of the like producers and like camera guys like, you know, rub her back because she's like distraught, and she's like crying, and she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is over. I don't want to be with Paul. She like gets up, and they start to walk away. And that is the end of that scene. It is so dramatic. A little wimp. That's what he is. He's a wimp. All right, you guys, so that's it for this week's episode of 90 Day Fiancé Before the 90 Days review slash recap. Oh, and next week, the regular 90 Day Fiancé is starting. So I'm going to check that out and see if I like it. If I like it, I'll lump it in with this next week's review of this. It won't be a separate thing. Remember I told you guys I was going to be watching America's Beauty Star because of Time the Infamous? And I was probably going to be reviewing that too. Well, I'm going to have to back out of that. It is not good. Like, I like Time and I'm watching it for her, but like overall the show itself, I don't like it. I don't like the hosts. I don't like it. Like there's something about it that like makes me, all I would do is trash talk it. And so therefore I'm not going to do a review on it because I really like Time and I don't want to talk poorly about something that she does. Not that I don't like her. I just don't like this thing she's part of. You have to watch it. Like I don't think the presentations look good. I don't think the pictures of the models look good. And I do think there's a little bit shade thrown at Instagram makeup and I'm not into that either. All right, but that's it for this episode of 90 Day Fiancé. You guys please watch next week's episode with me. Again, I will lump the season premiere of regular 90 Day Fiancé in with next week's review of this 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days so that it's not like I'm not doing a million videos at once. Okay, and I think that's it. So if you have any questions and concerns, please leave them down below. Join the conversation. If you like what I do here on this channel and you would like to consider becoming a Patreon patron, please go ahead and check out my Patreon page. The link will be down below. And remember to be you, be true, and find your place. Okay, bye.